Hello, everybody, and welcome back to 428 Shibuya Scramble. In the last part, we got through Achi's story, and we learned some interesting facts about his father, who seemed to have hired an assassin to kill someone so that Suzune could get a heart transplant. Kind of fucked up. Not sure if there's another truth behind that or not. To be fair, we haven't seen much of Achi's father, though, so he could just be a huge fucking asshole. Who knows? But we're at a predicament in which I cannot continue any of the stories that I have started yet. Achi's is done, Maria's at a keep out, and Minorikawa is at a bad end. Which means somewhere within Osawa's story and or Kano's story are the solution to both of these problems. And I believe I will start with Osawa's story, considering that Osawa and Minorikawa's storylines seem to intersect. So that is where I will start, with Maria's infected. I don't want to know how people feel. All I want to know is what viruses feel. I prefer viruses, because they make no move to encroach on me from the other side of my microscope. They leave me free to let my thoughts wander as I wish. And while it may be true to say I understand viruses, I have never been able to understand my fellow humans. I don't know them. I don't know a single fundamental thing about them. With Tanaka dead, trying to use the backup passwords for the fingerprint scanner had become a hopeless endeavor. The only remaining means of gaining entry to the storage area was to issue an emergency unlock request to the electronic lock manufacturer. In order to do that, they needed approval from 6 members of the board of directors. Returning to his study, Osawa called Makino's personal cell phone. "What is it?" Makino said gruffly as soon as he picked up. Osawa informed him of the situation, including Tanaka's death, and the fact that Maria was infected. The news left Makino at a loss for words. "Please," Osawa begged, "you need to hold an emergency board meeting." Makino was silent for a few moments. "I'm afraid I can't do that." "Why not? Are you just going to sit by and let my daughter die?" Osawa raged. "And not just her, if Maria goes symptomatic." Maria goes symptomatic. There was still only an if, but Osawa was reluctant to put his fears into words. "If she goes symptomatic, the Uwa virus will sweep through all of Tokyo." "I realize that," Makino replied. "But one of the board members is overseas on business. Holding a meeting is impossible." Despite the gravity of the situation, he sounded astoundingly nonchalant. Osawa couldn't back down now. "There must be some other option, like a web conference or something." "That doesn't help us if we can't get in touch with him," Makino huffed. "He went missing a few days ago in the middle of his business trip. The head of Okoshi Pharmaceuticals' New York branch has been missing since April 25th, 9 p.m. local time. There's been no demands for a ransom, and so the police department is investigating the possibility of some form of foul play." Osawa was almost too appalled to be angry. "That's the most ridiculous lie I've ever heard!" "I'd like to speak to my on-site contact if you don't believe me." This was like arguing with a child. If Makino was deliberately working against him, he'd never know if this disappearance was real or not. "In that case, can you please appoint a representative in his stead?" Osawa pleaded. "Selecting a representative is a complicated process. Even if we start now, it would take until sometime tomorrow afternoon to complete. Tomorrow afternoon. By then, it would be too late for any of this to matter. Sir, can't you see how absurd the things you're saying are? What would you have me do? Makino barked. These are the realities of corporate politics. I understand, sir. You will do nothing for my daughter. That's what you're saying. That's not what I'm saying, Makino. Look, I'll see what I can do to appoint a representative more quickly. He hung up. His tone had suggested that waiting for an appointee wouldn't be a terribly hopeful prospect. I have no more allies, Osawa thought. All I have left now are foes. He couldn't count on anyone anymore. Osawa was just going to have to get the antiviral by himself. Tanaka might be dead, but there still must be some way to get that lock open. Taking extra care to avoid the notice of the detectives, Osawa snuck out of the house and headed for the garage. Keep out. Sure. That's still a bad end, so for Kenji Osawa, it's probably also a bad end, which is what I wanted. As he was driving past Aoyama, Osawa spotted a man he recognized walking along. He pulled up alongside him and called out through the window. Mr. Minorikawa! Oh, Mr. Osawa. Sorry, but I haven't been able to look into that thing you asked about yet. I see. It's quite alright. Business with I and Tanaka could wait until later. Right now, he needed to focus on protecting Shibuya. He didn't get his hand on that antiviral. You're caught up in something big, aren't you? How do you know that? Because I'm Minoru Minorikawa. Well, the man's egotism had some justification. Maybe he didn't know the details, but he clearly had some inkling about Osawa's situation. Something clicked in Osawa's mind. He was up against the wall. Okoshi Pharmaceutical had told him that they were going to just let Maria die. He was past the point where he could resolve this peaceably. He was not going to give up without a fight. When it came time, Osawa was sure this man could help him. Well, that'll make this simpler, I guess. Get in. I'll tell you everything. Minorikawa thought for a moment, then got to the passenger seat. As he drove to the lab, Osawa filled Minorikawa in on all the details. The reporter listened intently, occasionally interrupting to ask a question. So how are you planning on getting your hands on the antiviral? He asked when Osawa had finished. I'm not sure. I figured I'd think of something after I got there. Minorikawa let out a nasal chuckle. Just improvising, huh? Ah, well. I'll back you up. At least I know I found my way into something important. They pulled up outside the lab, and the two men got out of the car. Immediately, a team of security guards burst out through the gate and forced Osawa to the ground. Hey, Minorikawa protested. What the hell is this? Guards had grabbed him as well. Unhand me! I'm Kenji Osawa! This is my lab! Mr. Osawa! Minorikawa shouted. What the hell is going on here? Osawa was just confused. Looked up to see Makino standing before him. Sir! Tell these thugs to let me go! Makino just frowned silently down at him. So, not only will you not help me, you're actively getting in my way? Osawa glared up at his boss. Maria's life! No, countless human lives are at risk. And there's nothing about that. That's what I need you to understand. Gave a signal to the guards who proceeded to drag Osawa away. Scientists writhed with despair at his own impotence. In the end, there was nothing I could do. That ends Makino's meddling. Osawa decided to try to get the antiviral directly, and even got some unexpected help from Minorikawa along the way. Unfortunately, upon arriving at the lab, they had a run-in with Makino and his security goons. Looks like Osawa is just not going to be able to get into his laboratory. He'll have to make some other decision. Alrighty. Like almost at the end of the block. Alright, no allies. He's just gonna have to trust Makino. Still, he'd just have to take Makino at his word. Right now, that was his only course of action. Sawa sat down in front of his computer and quietly closed his eyes. If only I could just go to sleep and wake up tomorrow morning and find all of this resolved. All I'm asking is for a miracle. But he knew reality would never be so kind. He could hold his eyes shut as long as he wanted, and it wouldn't make this hopeless situation go away. He felt the anxiety welling up inside him until it seemed like he was going to explode. Needing a distraction from his helplessness, Osawa opened up Ayanet. He knew this was mere escapism, but he couldn't just sit and do nothing while waiting for Makino to call back. He posted a new topic with the title Aya Fortune Teller. I tried the Aya Fortune Teller. My results basically said I was a bad person. Can't connect to the people around him, to the people around me. And you know what? That's exactly right. I'm only interested in my own little world. That's probably why my wife and my assistant at work got so fed up with me. It's the same with my two daughters. What sort of things are they interested in? Do they have a lot of friends? What are their aspirations for the future? I don't know any of those things. Never even occurred to me to find out. I'm such a terrible father. Osawa's fingers ceased their typing on the keyboard as he thought back to when Maria and Hitomi were younger. Daddy! Daddy! Two girls would follow him around like a pair of puppies. Their father was their everything. That much was clear just by looking at their faces. He'd felt a ticklish giddiness at having his girls cling to him so. He'd never felt anything like it in his life. But there were times where he also found it tiresome. I am sick of being the person I am. There's nothing I can do about that, though. I'm sure it's far too late for me to change. He poured out all his negative emotions into his post. It felt like stream of consciousness drivel, but he didn't hesitate to write it down all the same. He wanted other people to know what a miserable excuse for a human being he was. At last, when he couldn't think of anything else to add, he posted his bitter confession to the forum. He was staring numbly at the monitor when he heard a furious shout from the next room. "You've got to be kidding me!" Kajiwara and Osawa had never heard him so angry. Osawa headed into the living room and found Kajiwara embroiled in a vehement argument with the other detectives. "I don't care what HQ's policy is, I will not just quietly go along with this." Kajiwara had already screamed himself red in the face. "You're out of line," snapped one MPD detective. Kichi Sawatari, with the Metropolitan Police Department's first criminal investigation section. Having heard of Kajiwara's past deeds from friends at the Shibuya precinct, he recommended to his boss that Kajiwara be assigned to the investigation at the Osawa residence. After seeing the detective's interactions with Osawa, he is confident that his recommendation was in the right. However, given the circumstances, he can't help but take a cold stance towards Kajiwara. "Hold your tongue. I don't care if I'm out of line." "You may have talent, I'll give you that," the detective said. "But you're a precinct detective, and this isn't your jurisdiction. Not your place to question orders from higher up." Wait, Osawa thought. Kajiwara is a real detective after all? "Go on. Explain the situation to Mr. Osawa." Kajiwara bit his lip in frustration at the other detective's order. "Very well," he said. But before he could say more, Osawa noticed the police equipment had all been cleared off the table. "Hold on," Osawa said. "What's going on? Something happened?" "Allow me to explain, sir," Kajiwara said. His bitterness showed plainly on his face. "We've been recalled, sir. The NPD has established a security force, headed by members of its Public Security Bureau, to deal with the bioterrorist threat. Because the kidnapping task force has not yet found Maria and she is infected with the virus, the task force personnel have instead been absorbed into the security force and will continue their work under its direction." Osawa narrowed his eyes, fighting to keep the confusion from his face. What do you mean by that?" He was shaking, terrified to have his suspicions confirmed. "I'm truly sorry, sir, for having been unable to help you." Kajiwara gave a deep and solemn bow. "But Maria? What's going to happen to Maria?" "Another unit has been tasked with bringing your daughter into custody, sir." That much at least Osawa could process. "Going to place her under quarantine, aren't you?" Kajiwara's lips stiffened, but he nodded. "In order to minimize the spread of the virus, so I'm told." "No!" Osawa cried. "You can't do that! If you do, there won't be any way to save her." His head spun. "Please, I beg of you! You need to get Maria to me! I might be able to save her!" Kajiwara didn't respond. He turned to the detectives. "Please! Don't! You can't place Maria under quarantine!" The detective's only answer was to roll his eyes. "Why are you all ignoring me? Please, you have to listen! If you bring her to me, I can figure something out! I know I can!" He plucked himself down on the floor, yelling and feeling his own child throwing a tantrum. The detectives exchanged sullen looks with one another and then walked off and left him there. He knew he must be a sorry sight, but nevertheless, he kept shouting after them. "Please! Don't stand by and let my daughter die!" Kajiwara remained with him in the living room. "Sorry, sir. This was beyond." Stop. He gave another apologetic bow. Sawa felt suddenly elated. "No. You've done a fine job, Detective Kajiwara. It's me who should be sorry. I've made such a disgraceful display of myself." "It's not true, sir. In fact, I'm deeply moved. I could tell how much Maria must mean to you." Osawa shook his head. If I'd really been thinking about Maria, I would have made an effort to work with you detectives more. That was all just self-absorbed shouting. A moment of emotional selfishness. And yet, as a result, you convinced me to stay here with you. Hajiwara proceeded to pull out his phone and put in a request for the task force headquarters to remain at the Osawa residence. He got into a heated spat with his commanding officer, but ultimately received permission to stay on as the police liaison with Osawa. Well, the detective said when he'd hung up, you see, there are some people who are legitimately moved by a parental display of emotion. Even if I'm not certain what I can do very much in staying here. Even if I'm not certain that I can do very much in staying here with you. That's not true, Osawa replied. There's plenty you can help me with. He looked into Kajiwara's face and smiled. For instance, find things that have gone missing. Ah, like that plane ticket you mean? Kajiwara gave a bashful smile. Yes, I'd never have found it if it hadn't been here. If you hadn't been here, detective. Well, like they say, you can never find something when you're looking for it. And a hint of sadness came to Kajiwara's eyes, and his voice grew quieter. My daughter. She had this little... Oh God, who is this? My daughter. She had this little toy ring that she loved, and she lost it in our house somewhere. I didn't realize you had a daughter, detective. She just started grade school this year. Oh, really? She must be adorable. Well, I don't get to see her as much as I'd like. A lonely sort of smile crossed Kajiwara's face. Why is that? Doing this job caused me to neglect my family. Finally, about 2 years ago, my wife, divorce paperwork. I wanted to be able to keep our daughter with me, but, well, the law tends to favor the mother when it comes to custody issues. The detective pulled 2 bars of chocolate from his pocket. Osawa accepted one, but said nothing. The toy ring she lost. I bought it for her as a birthday present. She loved it so much. She cried and cried when it was gone. I looked all over for it. The detective bit his own chocolate bar with a soft snap. So then later, this toy ring. I found it after my wife took our daughter away. Do you know where it was? Osawa shook his head slightly. Under my daughter's mattress. It fell out when the bed was being taken out of the room. Isn't that funny? That was somewhere I never would have found if she'd stayed. Another sad smile came to Kajiwara's face before he went on. I guess there wasn't much point to that. Finding it after she was already gone. The man had lost his daughter. Osawa couldn't help but sympathize. Someone he could really talk to. For sure of that much now. Detective, I apologize. I've kept things from you because I was worried that they involved classified corporate information. Oh, Kajiwara's eyes glimmered with interest. Earlier today, I received some emails. They could be pertinent to the case. Would you mind letting me see them? Osawa shook his head. On the contrary. Back in front of his computer, Osawa saw that INNet was still open. Pretty Honey had responded to his forum post. One moment. Just let me read this. Osawa read the response. I got that same result. Do you really think it's too late? Don't give up hope. Hang in there. Never too late. Every family has its share of problems. Like, you'll never find one that doesn't, I'm sure. When it comes to family, there's no such thing as game over. So don't let it get you down, Julie. Besides, I did learn one thing from reading your post. In the end, a father's happiness is his daughter's happiness. Kajiwara appeared on the monitor. One girl is posting to a 40 and older. It's pretty honey. She always replies to my threads. The detective furrowed his brow. I see. Something the matter? No. That last line just had me curious is all. A young girl writing something like that. Oh, that's neither here nor there right now. Let me see those emails if you would. Osawa opened his email. He pulled up the images of the human testing on the monitor. What is this? Kajiwara stared at the monitor as if unable to look away. These are images from unauthorized clinical testing of an antiviral drug I developed, carried out by my company without my knowledge. Images of I'm sorry, what was that? The detective frowned at the unfamiliar terminology. In simple terms, the antiviral is a wonder drug to combat the Uwa virus. Hold on. Maria is infected with the Uwa virus, isn't that right? Yes. Uwa is a series... Okay. Yes. Uwa is a species of virus discovered in South Africa relatively recently. Roughly 12 hours after infection, patients develop a cough, then a fever, then begin vomiting, and ultimately begin to bleed uncontrollably from all over, resulting in death. The mortality rate is... Osawa was reluctant to say. Kajiwara held his breath, waiting. It's nearly 100%. Kajiwara shuddered. But wait, he said after a moment. If you have this wonder drug, then Maria... Osawa shook his head. Without Tanaka, I have no means of getting it out of the lab. Kajiwara's frown deepened. I see. Not be much to go on, but I think we can put together at least one piece of our little mystery here. Something difficult or impossible to explain. An enigma! You see plenty of books titled The Mystery of Such and Such or The Secret of Whatever on bookstore shelves, but when you read them, you're invariably disappointed by the mystery not being that mysterious after all. Pardon me 1 moment. Kajiwara inspected the email address of the sender, A, then brought up the mail header. See mail addresses like this much. It's seemingly from a foreign country, but this may be fake. You could tell just by the email? The detective flashed a little grin. Take a look here. So, if we just do this, and then this... His fingers flew over the keyboard, calling up the header details. Singling out the received from field. This set of 4 numbers at the bottom is the sender's IP address. Think of it as an ordinarily hidden location marker of sorts. As he spoke, the detective pulled up a website called IP Station. Copied and pasted the set of 4 numbers and pressed the enter key. Monitor showed the name of the provider, connection method, and other such details. A vendor that provides an internet connection service. A typical internet connection requires a dedicated line. Customers who do not already have one must make a contract with one with the provider. For one with the provider. When the provider establishes your connection to the internet, you are assigned an identifying number called an IP address. Sawa couldn't make heads or tails of most of it, but one thing drew his eye. Access point, Shibuya Ward, Tokyo. Kajiwara went into the email program's options and checked the server info for Osawa's connection. Deep furrows formed in his forehead. This is the same provider that you use, Mr. Osawa. What does that mean? What kind of internet connection do you have here at your house? What sort? Well, it's plugged in over there, but Osawa pointed at the router. And does everyone in your family use that same line? Yes, I think so. Kajiwara opened up a command prompt, then typed ipconfig. A literal prompt for users to issue computer control commands via keyboard instead of mouse, also frequently used to refer to the window or program allowing for such. Okay, so same numbers we saw before pop up here. It's a bad sign. Oh? Osawa stared at the monitor. Hajiwara pressed enter, and a black screen covered in white alphanumeric number characters appeared. Heck? Hajiwara muttered under his breath. Wait, what's going on? Osawa asked. Explain simply so that I can understand. Faking an email address is simple enough, but the typical person would be able to fake an IP. It's very likely that these emails were sent from another computer inside this house. Osawa had to stifle a gasp. The emails had been sent from his own house at around 11 o'clock this morning. Since Osawa hadn't sent them himself, that left only one possible culprit. I. Suddenly his phone rang, nearly startling him out of his seat. Makino's name showed on the incoming call display. Osawa quickly picked up. Is there an update on the emergency board meeting? He blurted. Makino's voice was quiet and subdued. I tried pulling whatever strings I could, to no avail. I'm afraid holding a board meeting today just won't be possible. The phone fell from Osawa's hand. His only possible means of saving Maria is now gone. To be continued. Minorikawa. Oh gosh, that took him back so far. Fun hitting people with that thing? Oh god, I have to read this entire fucking thing again. Don't go anywhere till I come back. My man. In 10 minutes, smooth as always. There was an explosion earlier, did you hear? Ah, yeah. I feel like we've had this conversation before. Oh, what do you mean? Please. No, fuck. Oh, did you hear? A middle-aged man died. Look tired, sir. Yeah, I guess I am. And we're here. Head and publishing. We've been taking 10 minutes on the dot. Thanks. Minorikawa left a 1,000-yen bill on the seat and exited the cab. Sir, the driver called after him. Minorikawa turned back around. Kimizuka was leaning out the window to point at him. It isn't called work because it's fun, sir. The day will be over soon enough. Just hang in there a little bit longer. The driver finished with a knowing grin. Minorikawa cracked a ghost of a smile. Maybe his spirits had been lifted a tiny little bit. Thank you. You're a true friend of the working man. He waved half-heartedly, then headed into the building. Mr. Mino! Chiaki threw herself at him as soon as he opened the door to the editing office. News of the explosion was playing on the television. Minorikawa marched straight to the desk and opened up his laptop. While it booted up, he tried to get a handle on the current situation. Where are the folks in the loan company? He asked. They're here, Chiaki said. I have them waiting downstairs. No, Toyama's dead. I'm sorry. I kind of let that slip. What about Hana? I'm not sure. I haven't heard from her since she called earlier. Tiny sigh, Minorikawa started typing at his laptop. By some miracle, his 6 pages of the copy were nearly wrapped up. Still, he needed to do whatever it took to see this job through to the end. That would serve as his final tribute to Toyama's memory. He loaded his copy into the DTP software in order to see the layout. Bit by bit, actual magazine articles began to take shape. Then the editing department door swung open. "Hey!" snarled the young man who barged in, picked over a stack of books. "How long you gonna keep us waiting, huh?" Honestly, Sagawa, must you be so rowdy? A middle-aged man stepped in alongside him. "Are you Mr. Minorikawa, then?" he added as his eyes fixed on the list. He held out his business card. "A pleasure to meet you. I'm Osawa Ozu from Takarada Finance, a black market lending firm that offers loans at an interest rate above what the law allows. Well known for taking whatever steps necessary to collect what's owed, its business card slogan, got bad credit, but you need a loan? Call anytime. We'll put together a loan that suits your needs." Deepest sympathies about Mr. Toyama. However, I'm afraid that we do need you to give us back the money we loaned. Despite his polite tone, the threat in his voice was plain. Look, next month's issue of 4-Star General Gossip is definitely coming out. Couldn't you please wait for repayment until we have the funds for those sales? Minorikawa asked. That was exactly what Toyama's plan had been, after all. Well, we certainly aren't monsters. If the magazine is going to be making you money, we wouldn't mind delaying another month. You really mean it? Chiaki chirped. To clarify, that would be the case if Toyama were still alive. Releasing the next issue is all well and good, but with Toyama gone, so too is the company. That will make full repayment of what we're owed impossible, I expect. Then what do you want us to do? Minorikawa asked coldly. How about we just cut to the chase, growled the younger man Sagawa. Dig out your ears and listen up. Chiaki recoiled in panic, and Minorikawa held up an interposing hand. Knock it off, he said. You're scaring the young lady. Then a smile came to Ozu's face. All we want to know is where Mr. Toyama's daughter is. Yeah, that's right, Sagawa. Tell us where the girl is. No way, Chiaki squeaked. Hana's just a little kid. She doesn't have any responsibility to pay back the... Ozu didn't watch. We're aware of that. Nevertheless, we'd still like to know where she is. The law didn't matter right now. Guys like this had all sorts of ways to wring money out of people. It was clear from the looks on their faces that Ozu and Sagawa had some wicked scheme up their sleeves. Unless, of course, you would prefer to take on Toyama's debts, Mr. Minorikawa. You are quite the accomplished reporter, after all. Take on his debts, huh? Minorikawa didn't know how much Toyama had borrowed, but it only took one look at these guys to tell him it was no small sum. How about it? Ozu asked. The way you land scoop after scoop, I'm sure you'll be able to repay us in full before you die. Minorikawa fiercely returned his stare. I'll consider it. Could you give me some time? Chiaki went pale at Minorikawa's response. No! Oh, no! How can you even think about taking their offer? She cried. Sagawa stepped in, drowning her out. No way! We've waited long enough! Give us your answer now! Yes or no? What's it gonna be? Oh, God. Now, let's just calm down. He said that he'd consider it. That's a step in the right direction, wouldn't you agree, Mr. Minorikawa? Yeah, sure. Then I suppose we can wait at least a little while longer. Minorikawa had hoped to put them off for several days at least, but it didn't look like that was going to happen. The two men from Takarada Financing plucked himself down on the editing department sofa. Mr. Mino, you're not actually going to take on that debt, are you? Chiaki asked quietly. Minorikawa sat at his desk looking over the copy he'd written. It's none of your concern, he said. What I need to know is, how's your piece on those street interviews coming? But, I mean, those guys, they said it doesn't matter if the issue comes out or not. Don't be ridiculous. When a professional agrees to take on a job, they see it through to the end. Chiaki took his point and scampered to grab the printout of her copy. Minorikawa gave it a quick once over. He saw immediately that the piece was lacking in structure. He then read the article a second time, checking the finer details. Several off-theme sentences jumped out at him. This is no good. Rewrite it. Tossed the printout back at Chiaki. Yes, sir. She bowed her head and retreated to another desk. TV was still on. A news broadcaster's voice suddenly broke through the silence, as well as Minorikawa's concentration. We're live on the scene now, where an explosion in Shibuya has... Minorikawa gazed blankly at the screen. He found his mind drifting to a particular moment of Toyama. The door looked like it might fall apart at any moment, but Minorikawa didn't care. He pounded on it as hard as he could. The Toyama nameplate popped off and fell to the floor. It was hard to believe this dilapidated apartment was the home of a newspaper editor who'd worked his way up from reporter. Hey, Toyama! Get your ass out here! At the end of Minorikawa's angry shouting, and other tenants on the floor poked their heads out of their room to stare. He paid them no heed, continuing to call out. Eventually, Toyama opened the door, dressed in his sweats and undershirt. Quiet down, you moron! He snapped. Come on in! I hear you tendered your letter of resignation at the paper. Minorikawa sat cross-legged on the tatami-covered floor. Tell me why! Toyama quirked a lopsided grin. Want to know why I quit, huh? All right, lean in close. Minorikawa peered at him dubiously. Huh? Why? I don't want anyone overhearing us. Resigned, Minorikawa leaned forward and turned his right ear toward Toyama. The man's warm breath against his cheek was pretty unsettling. Just start yell. At first, he had trouble concentrating on Toyama's story. When the older man got to the crux of the matter, he found himself listening with rapt attention. By the time Toyama finished, Minorikawa was unable to suppress his shock. You're starting your own publishing company? Not so loud, damn it! Toyama shushed him with a finger on his lips. He looked around wearily, as if there might be spies in his own apartment. Right, but publishing company? Minorikawa said again, more quietly this time. What are you doing? A distributor account. All booksellers were required to use a wholesale distributor to circulate their publications. To do business with such a distributor, a publisher needed a specialized distributor account. They're not going to let a company with no track record open a new account with a distributor. I'm sure you realize that. Toyama grinned, a proud gleam in his eyes. I know. That's why I bought one. You bought one? Ghost account, belonging to a publisher that went bankrupt. Distributor account could go for tens of millions of yen. No way Toyama could afford that on his severance pay alone. Must have taken out a loan in order to make the purchase. But the publishing industry was in a slump nowadays. People just weren't buying books much anymore. Starting up a new publishing company was a beyond risky endeavor. And I've already decided on a name for my company, Minorikawa. Toyama's face was positively beaming. Get this. Heaven Publishing. Heaven? That sounds fatalistic. The idea is that the people who work for me feel like they're in paradise. For all is... What? What the fuck? No! No. I have to look up if that's a word or if that's something misspelled. No fucking way! How is that a word? Oh, I hate English! For all his kvetching, or is it just vetching? Is the K silent? If the K is silent... No, I think the K isn't silent. Yeah, based on the fucking dictionary thing, it doesn't look like the K is silent. So, kvetching. I'm getting so pissed. For all his kvetching about keeping quiet, Toyama was now exclaiming pretty loudly himself. I mean, I can appreciate your willingness to take the risk, but surely your wife must have objections, Minorikawa said. Toyama fell silent, bent and opened up the refrigerator. Minorikawa took a peek inside. Its shelves were mournfully spare, holding little beside beer cans and drinking snacks. The missus left me. Took our dollar with her. Again, few words painted the picture clearly enough. Toyama grabbed a can of beer and tossed it to his guest. But no more sob stories, he went on. He briskly cracked open his own can of beer. Weak foam bubbled from the top. Cheers, Minorikawa! To Heaven Publishing's big debut! He'd cast everything aside and was striving for a new beginning. The man had braced himself for the challenge. It was Minorikawa's place to tell him he was making a mistake. Even if it was an uphill battle, he had little chance of winning. Congrats, Mr. Toyama. Minorikawa pulled the tab on his beer can. Cheers. Two of them clanked their cans together. Fuck, my voice is so fucked up right now. 1 year had passed since Toyama founded Heaven Publishing. Only a year? Minorikawa poked his head into the editing office, a bag from the convenience store in hand. Hey boss, how's business? Who dat? Ah. Hey boss, how's business? How does it look like it's doing? Toyama sat amidst a veritable mountain of returned stock, his expression bleak. Bookstores do not purchase the books they sell, but rather take them on consignment. This allows them to return to the publisher any books that do not sell. Books were all bulky, non-fiction tomes, not exactly the sort to fly off the shelves. The man couldn't even muster a smile for their reunion. Been like this for every non-fiction book we've put out. Wow, starting right off with the bleak stuff, huh? Because things are bleak. The only thing that's selling is this gossip rag of ours. Minorikawa pulled some beer cans from his bag, handing one to Toyama. Toyama lifted an issue of 4-star general gossip from atop his desk. It was Heaven Publishing's one breadwinner, the only thing keeping the company afloat. But the gossip now seemed like it was buried in the red of the publisher's non-fiction releases. I really did have higher aspirations than this, Toyama sighed, gazing in disappointment at the pile of unsold books. Here we are, with our gossip magazine as our only viable publication. The beleaguered bookseller chugged his beer. Daddy, I'm hungry. Minorikawa was startled to hear a young child's voice. He turned around to see a little girl nestled between the stacks of returned stock. That's my daughter, Hana, Toyama said. It's complicated. She's living with me now. I see. Minorikawa couldn't press for more details with Hana right there. In all likelihood, things with Toyama's ex-wife hadn't been going well. Go on. Introduce yourself, Toyama said. This is one of Daddy's work friends. Hana turned to Minorikawa with a... Hello, my name's Hana. I'm 6. You want some of this? Oh, you want some of this? Minorikawa held out a packet of dried squid he'd bought to go with the beers. Sure! Hana greedily stuffed her cheeks with the squid. Toyama flashed a sheepish grin. Do you like living with your daddy, Hana? Oh, do you like living with your daddy, Hana? Minorikawa asked, giving the girl's hair a little gentle ruffle. Uh-huh, I do! My daddy's amazing! He runs a company! Toyama let out a tiny, involuntary sob at his daughter's praise. I'll keep at it, Toyama said, looking into his daughter's smiling face. Hana is more important to me than any high aspirations I might have had. I'll keep shoveling out copies of the gossip. And at least make sure she's always got something good to eat. Daddy, this is really tasty. Hana held up the pouch of dried squid. Tears welled up in Tama's eyes. Toyama's eyes. Next time I'll make sure she has some sashimi instead of something like this. Hey, what do you mean something like this? Minorikawa grumbled. I'm the one who bought it. Toyama and his daughter laughed together. The heartwarming sight, Minorikawa thought. A daughter and his girl. Fucking, I'm falling apart. A father and his girl getting along so well. Toyama might have been a hard-hitting journalist, but when he came home at the end of the day, he was just daddy. It's only natural for the man, the father, to put his child above anything else. After gorging herself on snacks, Hana fell asleep on the sofa, looking well and truly satisfied. No, Minorikawa. Hana's happiness means more to me than my lofty artistic ideals ever could. Toyama kept his voice low as he regarded his daughter's sleeping face. From that day forward, Heaven Publishing had shifted its focus to scandal rags, with 4-star general gossip as its pillar. That been for good or for ill? Whatever the case, Toyama had abandoned his pride. Minorikawa had watched him become more and more of a miserable wretch. Minorikawa snapped back into the present as a sheaf of papers appeared in front of his face. Here you go, Chiaki said, radiating anxiety. Right. Minorikawa gave her copy a close read-over, then thrust it back to her. What did you even fix? He asked. Could you please tell me what parts are wrong? She mumbled, hanging her head. What are you talking about? Well, we don't have a lot of time here, so I figured if I just fix the parts that need fixing. Chiaki trilled off into an indistinct manner. Is that always how you go about fixing your copy? Yes. Then you're never going to get any better. Someone tells you that it's no good, you rewrite the whole thing from scratch. Just making fiddly tweaks here and there is what an amateur does. Chiaki dipped her head even deeper. Minorikawa let out a tiny sigh. Look. I just told you? That's what Toyama told me when I was first starting out. There were times he'd have me do dozens of rewrites. At first, I thought he was just pushing me around. But after rewriting things over and over, I realized something. There are a whole lot of ways you can write about the same thing. And that's what helped me hone my skills as a writer. Chiaki raised her head back up. Oh, wow. Really? If you can get that, stick with it. Ride your submission deadline as close as you have in order to write the best piece you can. Okay, I can do it. I will do it. Finally, Chiaki's face brightened with a smile. That's the spirit. The woman might have talent, but she hadn't realized it yet. She needed to be able to stick to an assignment, even when things got tough. If she didn't have that kind of resolve, she'd never make it as a freelancer. Oh, how touching! Ozu chimed in, applauding. Almost moved. Tears! They'll make a movie of this, for sure. See, we've only been acquainted with that sad sept. We had only been acquainted with that sad sept Toyama. We never knew there was such an upstanding fellow here who was so good at tough love. Minorikawa shot to his feet and pounded his fist on the desk. That's about enough from the peanut gallery. Hold your tongue, Sagawa snarled. His eyes shone with a gleam. We're getting sick of waiting here. Sagawa, you really are a short-tempered guy, aren't you? Ozu clucked, disproving his underling. Slid a sheet of papers onto Minorikawa's desk. Nevertheless, I'm afraid we do require a decision now. If you'll just stamp here, we'll be on our way. Chiaki stared down at the document. Is this a bond of recognizance? A bond of recognizance? Yeah, that's right. That's what you write when transferring a debt. Sagawa puffed himself up proudly. Minorikawa silently looked over the contract. If you don't have a stamp, gladly accept a signature as well, Ozu pointed out. Face it, pal, Sagawa added. If you don't hurry up and sign, we're never gonna stop going after Toyama's daughter. Minorikawa snatched up a pen. Mr. Mino, you can't do this! Think about what you're doing, Chiaki shouted. If you go through with this, you'll just wind up like Mr. Toyama. I won't. Yes, you will! Who the hell do you think I am? I'm Minoru Minorikawa, damn it! I'm gonna land so many scoops that it'll make your head spin. And I'm gonna pay back this debt and rebuild Heaven Publishing. But why would you take such a risk? Chiaki sobbed. Minorikawa lowered his voice. I owe him so much. I can't stand by and let these scumbags kill his daughter. Aha! Before Minorikawa could sign, Sagawa startled him with some exclamation. Looking up, Minorikawa saw that the loan sharks had seen little Hana standing by the door. Get her! On it, boss! Ozu and Sagawa rushed at the girl. Run! Minorikawa shouted. Hana bolted right back out the door, but Ozu managed to snatch her up just as she reached the stairs. Let's be in a hurry, shall we? Mild grinned as he headed down the stairwell. Stop! Let her go! Ow. Minorikawa rushed after them, trying to grab the girl, but Sagawa drove a punch right into his face. Oh! Pain staggered him. Nonetheless, he managed to press on. Get your hands off! Off that girl! Shut your damn mouth! Something hard slammed onto his chest. His vision went dark. He felt himself slip from consciousness. Just before he blacked out, he heard Hana's voice. Sorry, Uncle Minorikawa. Sorry? No, I'm the one who should apologize. Before his thoughts got any further, Minorikawa passed out. Hana gets caught. Hana showed up at the office only to get caught by the moneylenders, and Sagawa drop-kicked Minorikawa into unconsciousness when he tried to save her. It turns out Hana had been at the police station just before this, trying to decide if she should tell the police her father had been killed in the explosion. Then someone brought her to Heaven Publishing, which was clearly a mistake. Fucking Kano, what the hell are you doing, man? Alright. Alright, Kano, what the fuck's going on? Arriving back at the Shibuya precinct, Kano hurried to the interrogation room. With the investigation currently on hold, he knew that taking any official action would be tricky. If he was going to break through this stalemate, he was going to need Tateno's help. The abduction, a ransom, the Itachi case relay, Maria's release, and then Tanaka's death. Maybe Tateno would be able to figure out how all these elements were related. But first, Kano needed to check something for himself. Tateno would never have let Al-Karawan go free. Kano needed the prisoner to set the record straight. Al-Karawan sat in the precinct interrogation room looking brazen and cocksure. One glance at his face and Kano was reminded of what had happened to Sasayama. Fresh anger smoldered at the edge of his mind. There were two detectives already in the room. It seems he wasn't made privy to the details, one of them told Kano. Sounds like they were following orders carrying that Itachi case around, the other added. Kano sat down across from Al-Karawan. There's something I'd like to ask you, he said. We were just paid to do a job. I don't know anything more than that. His Japanese was imperfect, but he understood the language well enough. Tell me, How did you manage to escape from Detective Tateno? Escape? I didn't. A faint smile came from O'Callaghan's lips. He let me go free. Liar! Detective Tateno would never do that. He slammed the desk with his fist. I didn't have handcuffs on, did I? He took them off for me. This had to be a lie. It's not like there weren't any other ways to remove a pair of handcuffs. After he took off the handcuffs, O'Callaghan continued, he pointed his gun at me. Cut the crap! Wait, what? Yeah. Kano grabbed the prisoner by the collar, but O'Callaghan went on, unperturbed. He kept the gun pointed at me, but he didn't pull the trigger. So that's when I ran. Why would Detective Tateno want to shoot you? I saw him. Saw him? Saw him do what? Let me tell you something interesting, O'Callaghan said sardonically. There was that girl who was carrying the ransom, right? Kano pictured Hitomi standing anxiously beside the statue of Hachiko. That guy Tateno was trying to kill her. Ah, fuck, I knew it! I knew it! Maybe. Probably shouldn't trust this guy, but still, Tateno is Cane Man. Man with the cane. Yay! In a fit of rage, Kano drove his fist at O'Callaghan's face. His colleagues rushed to interpose themselves. Kano, calm down! After the floor, O'Callaghan fingered his split lip. After I gave you such good to grumbled. Detective Tateno was assigned to protect Hitomi Osawa, Kano shouted. You can't expect me to believe you're rubbish! He lunged around the table, ready to punch, but his fellow detectives held him back. O'Callaghan looked away indifferently. It's your Detective Tateno you should be arresting, not me. That girl's gonna get killed. Step in line, pal, Kano bellowed. Kano! His colleague shouted. You're the one who needs to step in line. Go and cool off for a bit. Expelled from the interrogation room, Kano immediately pulled out his cell phone and called Tateno's number. Pick up. Clutched his phone tight, pleading under his breath. But Tateno didn't answer. Kano sat down in a chair in the hallway in a bit of a daze. He found himself holding the present Sasayama had gotten for his wife. I have to do something. I just don't know what I'm supposed to do. His restlessness gnawed at him like a rabid animal. Hey, Kano. He looked up to see Kuze sitting beside him, his expression grave. I have an update on Sasayama, the director began. Kano swallowed the lump in his throat. It seems the knife went into some organ damage. He's in critical condition. I see. Kano bit his lip, hard. His handkerchief, red with Sasayama's blood, clung to the wrapping paper of Sasayama's present. Kano peeled it away carefully, so not to tear the paper beneath. What's that? Asked Kuze. Sasayama had me hold on to this for him. It's a present for his wife. Ah, see. Sorry, Detective Kuze, for ignoring your orders. Kano's eyes remained fixed on the gift as he spoke. Get down to it. None of this would have happened if it weren't for me. Some kind of punishment was surely headed his way for acting alone as he had. He probably wasn't getting one of the out of this with a simple written apology. When public servants are negligent of their duties or violate regulations, they can be punished with a warning, a formal reprimand, reduction in pay, a suspension, or dismissal. In the case of a warning, in addition to the remonstration from a direct supervisor, the individual must also submit a formal letter explaining the relevant details and assuring that it won't happen again. Kuze calmly shook his head. What happened to Sasayama isn't your fault. Don't blame yourself, he said. As far as this case goes, I've I've been given quite the runaround myself. There's a rare note of vulnerability in there was a rare note of vulnerability in Kuze's voice. The higher-ups have barely let any information trickle my way, but they're still ordering me around non-stop. It's a real pain in the ass. Kuze fell silent, ruminating. The quiet lingered between the two men for several moments before he abruptly spoke again. Oh, right. I'd like to get your opinion on something. So, Mamoru Tanaka, who we found in the minivan, you know? What you think? Did we ought to maybe release his name to the media? Kuze had slipped into his childish register. He was clearly exhausted. After dealing with the kidnappers' baffling actions and too much meddling from the higher-ups, even a veteran like Kuze is just beat. But that's not the only reason for his exhaustion. Kuze has a brother, 6 years his senior, who, despite being nominally mature, refuses to get a real job and shows no inclination to settle down with the family. He walks around town day after day, just like a hippie, and treats passerbys to songs he's written. Kuze has been worried about his shiftless brother for years now. The guy's become a chronic source of consternation. What? Dressed like a hippie? Songs he's written? There's no fucking way. No fucking way. No fucking way is Yanagashita this man's fucking brother. Kuze looks so old. There's no way Yanagashita is his brother. If he's old and his brother is 6 years older, fuck. No way. No. No. Kano was thrown by the question. It was a rare thing for the director to seek an opinion from a detective. Feels like there's something not too normal about one of Kenji Osawa's subordinates dying, Kuze went on. Kano had the same thought. This felt too intentional to be a coincidence. So here's the question. Should I get the media involved and try to rush for a resolution, or should I be more cautious? What would you do? About releasing the name, Kano asked. That's such a simple thing to answer. That wasn't such a simple thing to answer. There were so many factors to consider. A tired smile came to Kuze's face. Don't think about it too hard. This is just so that I have a point of reference. Tell me what your gut says. I think releasing the name should be alright. There was still a lot they didn't know about Tanaka. The fact that the final stop for the ransom relay was Tanaka's condo implied some sort of connection between him and the kidnappers, but they still had no idea what his role in the abduction might have been. They also didn't have any motive for why Tanaka would be helping the kidnappers in the first place. By sharing some of what they did know with the public, they might be able to garner some new leads. You'd release the name? Alright then. Without another word, Kuze headed back toward the conference room. On the TV, the governor's press conference was still going on. I've just requested that each of the railroad companies, starting with JR, stop running trains through Shibuya Station until further notice. As far as the roads go, Route 246 has already been closed for traffic. The executive looked pale as he spoke to the crowd. Is there any possibility of a bioterrorist attack? What about the people who are still in Shibuya? Reporters unleashed a barrage of questions. The governor's face scrunched up. As I've already made clear, this is not a complete blockade. Because modern Japan does not have a system for enacting martial law, there are a few ways that the government could effectively quarantine Shibuya. In the case of a potential viral infection, the infectious disease law allows for the city to be partitioned into areas of restricted movement. If the authorities do not want to acknowledge the existence of the top-secret UA virus, however, taking such an action would be rather tricky legally. There's nothing to stop anyone from leaving Shibuya on foot. Isn't what you're describing de facto martial law? Spat one reporter. Of course not, the governor snapped. You should be well aware that martial law is illegal. I couldn't declare it even if I wanted to. If you wanted to,
So this is a bioterrorist issue then? I never said anything of the sort! Press conference was evolving into Kano was unsurprised, given the circumstances. Still, everyone was doing their best insofar as they knew how. But why not me, Kano thought. Doesn't matter what I do. I just want to be able to do something. Just letting time tick by without trying to take action was more than he could bear. Kano. Began to worry about Rumi and decided to give her a call. The phone rang several times before it went to voicemail. The fact that she hadn't picked up made Kano all the more anxious. He was still staring at his phone when he got a call of his own. When he peered at the incoming call display, his heart nearly stopped. There was Tateno's name. Kano quickly pressed the button to accept the call. Detective Tateno! Detective Tateno, is that you? A whole mountain of things Kano wanted to ask. Just what was Tateno been doing this whole time? Why had he let Alcalawan go free? What had happened to Hitomi? But while he was trying to decide what question to pose first, Tateno spoke. I've secured Minorikawa Osawa. What? Word came out as a startled gasp. Detective Tateno, you have to bring her here ASAP! Right now, she's... Tateno cut him off. You need to bring Hitomi Osawa to my location at once. Hitomi? Osawa? Yes. Heard over the wireless that the man from the U.S. Embassy had her in custody. Kano hadn't been listening to the most recent wireless traffic. Apparently Stanley had managed to find Hitomi. But what was Tateno getting at here? Wait, hold on. What for? I mean, why do you need me to bring Hitomi Osawa to you? There was no reply. Detective Tateno, answer me. Please. Tateno replied as if he hadn't heard Kano's question. There's an office building in Nonpedai called South Hill. I'll be waiting for you on the rooftop. Don't bring her. I'll kill Maria. With that grisly warning, he hung up. Kano's hand went limp. His phone slipped from his grasp and fell to the floor. He needed to get to Tateno and find out what was going on. He started running, alone, toward Nonpedai, taking the quickest route through the back streets and alleys. He'd almost made it to South Hill when he spotted 3 foreigners in a narrow alley ahead. They were scanning the area as if searching for someone, and when they noticed Kano, they started running right for him. They were all dressed in the same kind of black clothes Alcalawan wore. Kano recognized them at once, syndicate members who'd taken part in the ransom relay. In a matter of moments, they had him cornered. Out of my way, he said. I'm in a hurry! But either they didn't understand him or simply didn't care to respond. Instead, they moved into attack, pummeling him with fists and kicks. 3 against 1. Kano didn't stand a chance. Although he tried desperately to protect himself, soon he was sprawled out on the ground like a used and tattered rag. Rag? The men left him where he fell. As they jogged into the distance, he could see them searching again. The deserted alleyway grew quiet as a storm's aftermath. I need to get to Tateno. He strained to reach out for his cell phone, but he couldn't move any of his fingers. Won't be seeing Tateno. En route to Nonpedai, Kano crossed paths with Alcalawan's cronies and got badly beaten. Ironically, these crooks hadn't been looking for him. Someone else had led them to Nonpedai, and Kano wound up paying the price as a result. Why were they there? He's there for another reason. Hang on. Kano thought about Sasayama's wife and decided to get in touch with her. Called Sasayama's home phone, but nobody picked up. Perhaps she'd gone to the hospital? With that in mind, Kano called up Shibuya Central Hospital and asked them to transfer him to Miss Sasayama. After a little while, a woman's voice came over the receiver. Yes, this is Miss Sasayama. Her voice was thin and reedy. My name is Shinya Kano. I work with your husband on the force. What happened? He didn't know what to say. Couldn't find the words. I wish that I'd been there when he'd gone to make that arrest, he blurted out at last. I should have tried to get there and back him up sooner. If I hadn't been too late. He trailed off, hoping he hadn't said too much. Sasayama's wife answered in her gentle, quivering voice. Thank you so much for your concern. Glad that my husband is lucky enough to have a colleague like you. No, I couldn't. I married a detective, Mr. Kano. I've prepared myself for the possibility that something like this might happen. But she certainly didn't sound like she was prepared. Kano felt a biting pain in his chest. Your husband gave me something to hold on to for you. I'd like to give it to you if I can. Oh? Well, certainly, but I'd like to stay here by his side today if possible. Of course! I'll head on over to the hospital myself then. I hope you don't mind if I pay a visit. Oh, of course not. Sorry to trouble you like this. Thank you so much. Kano hung up, then hurried out of the precinct. Hey! As he was making his way toward the hospital, Kano spotted a girl sitting on the pedestrian overpass. She looked like she was on the verge of tears. Concerned, he stopped beside her. Are you waiting for someone? He asked. The girl simply bit her lip and said nothing. Are you lost? Do you need a policeman? The relatively low crime rate in Japan, combined with rather high police personnel numbers in Tokyo, meant that officers, particularly beat cops, often have plenty of bandwidth to deal with more minor issues. Again, the girl gave no answer. Where did you come from? Kano tried. Still nothing. He had just decided to go and call for a female officer when the girl hesitantly spoke at last. Heaven Publishing? After a little coaxing, she told him where that was. Turned out it was on the way to Shibuya Central Hospital, not too far from where they were now. Why don't I take you there then? Kano said. I'm already heading in that direction anyway. The girl seemed a bit reluctant at first, but eventually she agreed to go with Kano. Kano parted ways with the girl outside the building where Heaven Publishing was located. He noticed that she hesitated to enter at first, but eventually vanished inside. Kano's phone rang as he was about to continue on his way. When he peered at the incoming call display, his heart nearly stopped. There was Tateno's name. Kano quickly pressed the button to accept the call. Detective Tateno! Detective Tateno, is that you? The whole mountain of things he wanted to ask. I've secured Maria. I've been listening. What for? Answer me. If you don't bring her, I'll kill Maria. Becker's big warning, he hung up. Kano's hand went limp, his phone slipped from his grasp and fell to the floor. He needed to get to Tateno and find out what was going on. He started running alone toward Nanpadai, taking the quickest route through the back streets and alleys. Oh, and does the same thing happen? Yeah, gets caught up in a bad ending. Okay, but... Okay, if I worry about Rumi, then I never run into the girl. Which means, Minorikawa continues. I didn't notice that. Okay, cool. Well, I'm actually going to call it here. One, because my throat fucking hurts. Gonna grab some water before the next fucking recording. And because it's been a decent bit. Thank you for watching, especially if you got this far. Stick around, because there's a lot more to come.